There are 7 basic pathological gaits that should be recognized by their characteristic patterns. These pathological gaits include hemiplegia, spastic diplegia, neuropathic gait, myopathic gait, Parkinsonian gait, chorea and choreiform gaits, and ataxic gait. These gaits have localizing value because they indicate anatomical levels, giving us Y values as well as X values, as well as indicating if there are systems involved, such as the motor, sensory, or cerebellar systems. Normal gait is demonstrated in the normal neurological exam section of this tutorial. Pathological gaits are demonstrated in the abnormal neurological exam section. The gait that I'm going to demonstrate now is the hemiparetic gait. This gait, if we were to demonstrate it, we need to be able to show the extension of the leg and internal rotation. So the leg is too long. We get circumduction with the paretic side. But very importantly as well is that the upper extremity is very much involved. And so there's adduction of the shoulder, flexion of the elbow, pronation of the wrist, the thumb is tucked under, and a cortical fist. So this is the position of the hemiparetic gait, with the other side being normal, having normal associative movements. You can actually hear the pattern of the gait as well, as we have circumduction for the paretic side. Again, watching upper extremity postured into the decorticate posture. The lower extremity is actually circumducted, coming around. The next gait is the spastic diplegic gait. In this particular gait, both lower extremities are affected, and the lower extremities are affected more than the upper extremities. So the posture, the position in this particular gait is there's flexion at the hips, flexion at the knees, and the feet or the ankles are extended and internally rotated, and there's also tight adductors, so there's adduction at the knees. So it is a swinging gait with both sides, both lower extremities. You can hear a different pattern in the hemiparetic gait. But this is not all. The upper extremities are also involved, again, not as much as the hemiparetic gait. But for the upper extremities, the extremity is carried in a low guard or a mid-guard position, and you don't have the normal associated movements in the upper extremity. So this would be the type of posture and type of position that one would see for the spastic diplegic. The next gait is going to be that of a neuropathic gait in which the distal lower extremity is affected. For this particular gait, the person has the inability to dorsiflex the foot, and so the foot is actually a foot drop, and the person must step high in order to clear the foot. So if I don't step high enough, I'm going to drag the toe of the shoe, and so what happens is the person steps high to be able to clear the foot. As the foot drags, or as the foot drop position. This gait is a myopathic gait. With myopathies, usually we have weakness in the pelvic girdle region. And as I walk, if I can't stabilize my pelvis, then what ends up happening is that for the weight-bearing leg, I'm trying to stabilize the hip, and I'm coming off with the other, the pelvis will then dip or drop towards the non-bearing extremity. Now, if I continue in this attitude, I'll fall. In order to compensate for that, I'm going to shift my weight, and I'm going to try to put it over the weight-bearing leg. And so I'm going to actually swing the body towards weight-bearing leg and trying to get hyperlordotic and lock back over the hip that's stabilizing or is actually supporting the weight. So what will happen is that there will be a waddle as the pelvis will actually drop, come back up, drop on the other side, and go back and forth instead of being nice and perpendicular to where it should be to the leg. So again, this is what it would look like if I'm going to walk. As I take this step, the pelvis will drop. I'll shift this way, and then as I come through, I'll shift this way. The pelvis will drop on the opposite side, and there will be a waddle. I'm in the hyperlordotic position, trying to maintain my balance. Okay. So the pelvis drops, shifting to the opposite side. This gait is the gait that is a hypokinetic gait. The prototype is Parkinson's or Parkinsonian type of gait, in which the patient will have a posture in which he'll be stooped over, leaning forward, and then will have difficulty as far as initiating gait. When the gait is initiated, there are small steps. Oftentimes there's a tremor associated with this. And as the gait progresses, there may be a picking up of speed, or what's called a fenestrated gait. And then in turning, instead of having the normal turning, the patient will turn en bloc, which means they'll turn almost as a statue moving around. And then, again, having difficulty starting in the marche petit pas. As opposed to the hypokinetic gait, we now have the hyperkinetic gait, which we see what we call a choreiform gait, or chorea. With this gait, there are not only abnormalities in the gait itself, but associated movements. There can be orofacial dyskinesias, in which the patient will be having movements of one side or the other side of the face, kind of a grimacing type of a fashion. There can be movements in the upper extremities, and there are fragments of semi-purposeful type of movements or writhing type of movements. And then the legs will also start to go. And so the patient attempts to walk, get the superimposition of the movements, but the patient doesn't actually fall because the balance is not affected. Just you have these involuntary movements that are now being superimposed on the gait. The last gait that I'm going to demonstrate is the ataxic gait. In the ataxic gait, the patient has difficulty narrowing the station and maintaining balance. So typically they'll have a wide stance, is trying to maintain balance, and that there oftentimes will be unsteadiness in the trunk. So there may be some truncal titubation, which is an anterior-posterior type of tremor at about 3 hertz. And there's also a tendency to lunge or to jerk sideways, and the patient then has to catch themselves. Now, of course, one of the ways to bring out this particular type of problem is to narrow the station, asking the patient to walk tandem. So if I then am ataxic, I then try to walk tandem, then I'm going to have difficulty walking